It's not something whispered about in certain circles. It's not something that comes in a plain-looking jewel case. It's not a nameless, untraceable developer. And it's not something supernatural. The game in question is indeed called The Theater. It was developed by a company called Saldea Software. I'm fairly certain it's an English company, despite the Spanish name. As far as I know, all they made were learning softwares. I have a math suit for them somewhere around here. So The Theater was probably meant to be some sort of interdimensional game. The game was obviously never finished, probably from lack of funding or the whole company going under. The description in the story is actually pretty accurate. It's a first-person perspective with flat sprites in a 3D-ish environment and glitchy as hell. The ticket taker has an egg-shaped body, and one of the hands is huge and misshapen. I think to look like he's reaching toward you for a ticket. The description of the swirly hand man is also accurate, just a glitched version of the ticket taker. But I saw a few people saying that he looks like a Gygus. That's not the case. The features of the face are just swirled, and are red because the lips are gigantic. I have absolutely no idea why this has happened. While there are a few character sprites in the game's resources, this isn't one of them. Oh, and just to clarify, the sprite is a bit creepy. That's all. It's not terrifying, it's never filled me with a sense of dread, it's just a bit creepy. The game plays pretty much exactly as stated in the story, so accurately, in fact, that I think the author just downloaded it somewhere and decided to make a scary story of his experiences. I'll admit that some of the things in here can be pretty unsettling, but not OMG crap your pants scary. Like I said, this game is unfinished and pretty glitchy. I think the idea is to select a movie from the posters on the wall, enter the theater and play a minigame. The minigames are glitchy and missing resources, to the point where being mostly unplayable, but there doesn't seem to be a time limit on any of them, so you just plow through until you've done something right enough times to bump into the lobby, which describes the story and what happens. If you didn't select a movie, you'll be allowed to enter the theater, but since your parameter of which game to load hasn't been set, you'll just be bumped back into the lobby. Here's where it gets a bit weird. If you continue to enter the theater without choosing a movie, odd, sometimes creepy things will happen. I'm not sure why, but if I were to make an educational guess, it would be that glitching past the minigames would cause variables to reach values than they weren't meant to, resulting in things appearing that they shouldn't, or, the game to just glitch to hell and back. It's been years, but here are some of the weird effects that I can remember. The swirly hand man, movie posters appearing out of frame, textures changing colors, legitimate disturbing audio issues, other characters, other areas. The last two are obviously the most interesting ones, because you'll spawn in a small room with the black floor and green walls, which will crash the game if touched. Sometimes you'll appear in a smaller room with the lobby with a concession stand. Kind of. There's a woman behind the counter with an incredibly poor and drawn popcorn machine and a soda fountain. But if it's all just an image on the wall, it's basically just a huge yellow concession stand mural. I don't remember if you can interact with it or not. The other characters that appear worth talking about is a guy in a brown jacket who appears on the sidewalk outside the lobby. Looking back, I don't think the story mentioned this, but to the left to where you start off at the wall is a row of glass doors looking out and onto the streets outside the theater. If you glitch past the minigames enough, a man in a weird-looking jacket, I think it's supposed to be tweed, it's a mess, with a huge smile on his face, will just go on the other side of the doors, staring at you. I mean, a huge smile, like Freaky Fred or Spark Russell. Google image if you want that image in your mind. Actually, since he had the same body shape as the ticket taker, he looks a bit more like the mayor from Nightmare Before Christmas. His smile isn't creepy though, he's just broad. What is creepy are his eyes. While the ticket taker, Ashy Trey, and other sprites will always face you, the smiling guy is anchored in place like one of the walls. His eyes, however, are always staring at you. Just sitting there, just thinking about him gives me the chills. Okay. Well, there's nothing utterly scary or supernatural about the game itself. That's one thing I will admit that legitimately scares me, like a porcelain doll. That's pretty much all there is to the theater. If you can find it somewhere, I'd recommend downloading it just to see what it's like. Oh, one thing I'd forgotten. As stated in the story, getting the thing to run is, to say the least, difficult. I think someone got a hold of all the code and resources and just compiled it and added their own installer or something. Again, there's nothing paranormal about the installation. It just doesn't work well.